with the angle of the hook, when you go to set that hook, the jig's going to rotate. So with the angle, it's going to drive it right up into that lip.
Top speed as fast as you could crank it with a 15-mile-an-hour east wind in your face.
And that's where you're going to find all these flatfish. There's all those troughs right on the edges of the sandbars.
If people want to put themselves in that dangerous situation, let them. Don't follow them. If you're uncomfortable, stick to your guns. Don't do it.
Yeah. 90% of everything in their stomach content is going to be mussels.
But these are the same ones I target like world-class tarpon with when I go on vacation.
You want to put that bait on so a lot of the bait is stacked up on the shaft of the hook, and a lot of that hook is exposed with the bait laying up by the shaft of the hook.
And you go deep when you're talking rods. I love it.
But if I'm going to go for big fish, I've learned to throw bigger plugs, and they'll produce. I mean.
All right, guys, welcome to Fat Dad Fishing Show. My name is Rich. I'm here with co-hosts Ed and John. How you guys doing?
I'm doing wonderful, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Doing good.
Good.
Ed's
good.
just frozen.
All right.
Quiet.
Yeah, usually he's the one that opens up there. That's why I had a brief pause.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll bump him off the screen for a second.
I was going to say leave him there for a few minutes.
Leave him there the whole time. Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, so he's a co-host in the system, so he can actually bring himself back on once he gets corrected. So everybody, welcome to this edition of the Fat Dad Fishing Show. As you saw in the intro, we had a couple of guys in there that are really going to become important people to listen to and look to as we head into March and the reopening of striped bass. We had Bayside Dave and we have Chris Matusin, who man, I've gotten a lot of feedback on that live stream that we had with him. Talking about striped bass in the backwaters. So tonight we're going to have Chris back on. We're going to bring him on in just a minute. Just want to get some housekeeping done up front. Ed, you have anything going on you want to share?
Do you want me to share?
Yeah, you could share.
So we got a new Fat Dad version 2 coming out. It's got to go through some testing, but that'll be available. John's hoodie has shipped, so he'll be getting that soon. Other than that, man, just been catching up on stuff. You know, like COVID kicked my butt a little bit, so I'm getting back in the swing, getting some jigs made.
Yeah.
We dropped the new Shepherd Tog jigs last week. Other than that, just trying to get ahead of the game here, so I can actually fish this year.
Awesome. John, what you got going on?
Well, it looks like it's going to be setting back on the fishing for me, unfortunately. Some reason Creeley Customs is now getting a ton of orders. Usually always does. It comes in waves, but seeming to be a little bit bigger this time around. I got Captain from Beast Modes now want me to do his rod for him. We got Perry Del Rossi wants me to do one. I think Mike's going to be getting one shortly. And then a couple bigger names that actually have been guests on here, one of them tonight. So we're trying to figure out the right rod for him. So there's a little bit that's got to be done, but Toggin starts in April. So guys, if it gets pushed back, sorry, it's going to be pushed back just a hair.
Yeah, well, you better get it right for Chris, because he will be back on as many times as I can convince him to, and he'll be able to talk smack about you. And I'll make sure you can't come on that night, so he'll have free reign to go for the entire time. So I have for our news, just wanted to let people know we talked last year about having a flounder tournament team or just a general tournament team for kayaks. Doesn't have to just be kayaks, but I realize that most tournaments don't have kayak team divisions, but we're going to fish like a team, and our goal is going to be to work together, try to get people, at least one person, onto the leaderboard in every tournament. So we have our group of people. So we've got me and Ed and John. We've got Mike. We've got Bill, who's going to be fishing, not all of them, but some of them. So Bill is probably on right now. Randy, Joe, and Ray B. You've probably seen Ray on Facebook if you follow fishing at all. Looking forward to that. So we've already got a few tournaments picked out, and wanted to show everyone real quick. We got our own little shirt that we're going to be wearing. With our sponsors. There you go. not really sponsors, but we do have one sponsor at the bottom there. Soaplove.com is doing the shirts for us. So I wanted to just shout that out. Once we get these in hand, we'll show people what they look like. Just, something fun to do. So just got a few of those, going to pass them out to the guys. If anyone else is interested in them, let me know. The plan is not to sell them, but if people want them, I'm sure we could work something out to get them into your hands. So with that said, let's jump right in. Let's bring Chris on because that's what everyone's here for. So Chris, welcome.
How are you, gentlemen?
What's up?
What's going
Ready
on?
to fish. Ready to fish. It's been a long, cold winter, so it's very. Real quick before we get started, I got to tell John. The first time I saw him on here, tell me if he doesn't look and sound like the guy from Blair Witch Project. So, what's funny though? I actually thought that was him. So last week I researched that guy's real name, and obviously it's not. But if you watch the movie and you listen to his voice, he's a spitting image.
I got to go watch it again.
Kind of weird, but I'm telling you, he's the taller guy, with the girl, and then you got the stockier guy, and then you got John. So this is like royalty for me talking to him tonight because I know that I saw him in a movie theater in Queens on the big screen. So
awesome.
Fantastic.
Greatly appreciate it.
My man, cheers. All right.
Now, I'm gonna have to watch it. I watched it once in my life, and I was not sober. And all I remember is that I watched it. I don't remember a thing about it except that the screen moved a lot.
Right.
That's all I remember. And that was, the effect of how much alcohol I had. It was really bothering
That's too funny. It's too funny. Oh.
So so welcome back, Chris. I got to tell
Thank
you,
you.
based on what subscribers and viewers have said, in my personal opinion, if we had a business going here and we were making money, man, I try to pull you on the payroll as soon as possible. You are literally the type of person that we want to have on the stream. So helpful, so open about everything. I'm not saying that you're burning spots or anything like that, but open to within reason to teach people how to catch fish. And I thought it would be a great idea to have you come on, because we all know what happened. And I guarantee nobody here really did all the prep that they should have for the opening of the season. But we got a couple weeks. So let's get the last minute cramming done, and let's talk about that and talk about what to expect in the spring.
So most of my prep, I do a lot of that in December. As soon as I get done and I hang up the fall routine, and I didn't fish as much. I know the last time we talked, we were just getting into the fall season, but then I got the COVID thing. I went to Dominican Republic. I came back from there. We all got COVID in the house. Maybe 5 or 6 days later, not from there. We got it from here, but so that pretty much, it was pretty bad. For like 2 weeks, I was on the shelf. So I missed a lot of that fall bite. So I kind of hung that up early. I did a little back bay in December. I got a couple decent fish like the second week of December, but as usual down here, it gets cold just like that. And it kind of shuts down. So, I take all the plugs, I change out the hooks, redo the line on some reels, and I'm ready to rock in 2 weeks. I'm just chomping at the bit. Usually I go out and I do a lot of scouting before now. This season I haven't done a whole lot of that, but a lot of my spots really don't change. It's just a matter of really water temperature right now, and nights like tonight and last night really aren't helping that. So it's
no. And you made
tough.
a little progress on it over the weekend with those nice days, and it's just plummeting right back. I think up here in Pennsylvania, it was down to 13 last night, which is absolutely insane. Actually, it's not when you think about it. It's February. It should be cold, but man, I thought we were going to get through this and have an early season, and I think we're still on track to have a regular start to the season. You guys seeing anything different?
Glimmer of hope, I think. Wednesday is supposed to be like 70 degrees with rain, and then it starts to plummet back down through the weekend, but then I think it tapers back up into the 60s next week. So,
next week. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, it's going to be up and down, but if we keep getting this up and down, I think it's going to push it quicker. So,
yeah, we just need for the snow to stop, because usually when it snows, it messes with the salinity in the water, especially if you go up the river. So that kind of sets that bite back a little bit. But not last year, the year before. So 2 years ago, we had that really mild winter. It almost made me think, why did I even cover up my pool? Because it just stayed so mild. And I know from opening day there, all through April was like lights out that year. It was nonstop every time I went out because the water temperature, I think that winter, it pretty much held like low 40s in the bay, where this year I think it's gone down to, 35, 36. Now it's up a little bit higher, but that winter, fish pretty much picked up where they left off in the fall. So there wasn't that kind of searching phase that I think there's going to be a little bit this year. But we're ready to go. The rods are ready to go. We're ready to bend them and get out of this cold front. So ready to go.
I'm looking forward to it. Qua is in the chat mentioning it's 38 degrees 3 days ago when he was checking on his boat. 38 degrees, still a little low. What are you looking? I'm looking for something around 42. I'll feel like I can start. 45 is where I start to feel good about it. What are you looking at?
43 is usually like the magic number for me, and it's crazy how 1 degree or 2 degrees can make a big difference. But regardless of whatever the water temperature is on March 1st, like as soon as we hit midnight, but depending on what the tide is, but I'll go with that tide, and even if the water's 37, 38, I'll still go. You just got to fish really, really slow, and that's not really my style. I'm more of a quicker fisherman. That's why I love the top water so much in the summer. But in the spring, you just till the water gets like high 40s, low 50s, you just scale the presentation down and slow it down. It's slow, steady, and low is kind of the key early on. And I think I really developed that a couple years ago. I had tough springs up until May, till maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But once I got into the mag darters real heavy and creeping some jigs, some paddle tails along the bottom real slow, that it pays off. You just got to have patience and not be afraid to move around, because if you fish a spot really good, I'll stay there maybe a half hour, 40 minutes. But if I'm not getting anything, then, we go to spot 2. I just don't waste a lot of time there. And you got to move around in the spring, because usually they're hauled up together somewhere. They're not real spread out yet because, again, the water temperature and the lack of bait. But, once the bait comes in, then you can kind of, it's a little easier to find them. But now they're kind of stuck to those winter holes, and that's kind of the areas where you target. But that water temperature can mean, hey, we run that mag darter right below the surface, or we just we crank it real slow, and you just barely get that wobble. So, but it's been a long winter. So the 2 months is a really long time for me. I mean, when you're out fishing 4 or 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week in the spring and summer, and then you go to like this dead stop. Just ready to go. And this year I usually do some pickerel and some trout early winter, but it's just been so cold. Just haven't really done anything. But again, the prep is done, the lures are ready, the reels are ready to go. And I talked to John the other day, like he mentioned, we're trying to put together not the perfect rod, but I guess a more well-rounded rod for sod. And I actually played back your program with Chris Balaban. I was listening to that. I think I sent you a screenshot. I was listening to that. I told Chris the other day that I think it was Friday coming home from work. I listened to that show, and I learned a lot myself about rods, and that's one thing I like about doing these shows is, you can never know everything. You can always pick something up from someone, and, anything somebody could pick up from this show that I do with you guys. I envy the work that Ed does. I mean, we just talked before we came on that every winter I, say, oh, I'm going to paint some lures. I'm going to get some kits. A buddy of mine is really into doing lures now, and I see the product that you guys put out, and I'm like, oh man, I just got to find the time and make the investment. And again, that 2 months goes by so fast. But back to the rod thing, we're just really trying to put together a nice 7.5 foot rod that is, maybe like 3/4 of an ounce or a half ounce to 2 ounce. I think we talked medium action, but like a like a fast tip, something like that. Really light in your hand. So we're going to put that together over the next month or two.
Yeah, we're looking, I think, at like more of a moderate, fast type action.
Yep.
Is probably the route we're going to go, because finding that 7.6, like we talked about, to find it within that spec of like a half ounce to 2 ounce. Ideally, there's a couple blanks out there, but back to supply chain and everything, it's hard to come across everything. So, and to make more of a budget friendly rod too, it's kind of
exactly.
It's kind of hard to find that right rod within those specs too. So. But I'm going to go take a drive down Thursday, and I'll talk to you in the next couple of days. I'll be down that way. I got to go pick up the blank, so take a look at it.
I have a good TFO that I use in this time of year, but again, it's great for this time of year. But when I start to throw bigger plugs when the weather gets warmer, I can still throw them, but you kind of lose a lot of that backbone on it. So yeah, it's a challenge to find the right rod, but we're going to find something really nice, and I think it's going to be a really good product. So,
yeah.
So I do have to say, John and I were talking about that and how tough it is to find that blank. And I didn't pick the blank, but I did say, well, have you looked at this one? He said, and he just ignored me. He said, that just jogged my memory. So he definitely ignored my suggestion, I think.
It's fantastic.
And he's like, I got to go. I'm like, all right. So as of right now, all I know is that he found one. I somehow jogged his memory, but I still don't know what it is.
But you know what? Even after I talked to you about that, I made a phone call again to actually Balaban. I'm like, dude, I'm stuck. You got to give me a hand here. So he actually put me in contact with Chuck over at House of Rods in Maine, and we're talking. So thankfully, Chuck had exactly the blank I was thinking about in stock. So it's
now, was it the brand I said?
Absolutely not.
Which means it is. It definitely is.
Yeah.
Nope.
I'll never know either way. But it's interesting. So that kind of brings us in. You had mentioned that your TFO rod isn't quite what you would want to use in the summer, right? And it's because of the backbone difference. So let's talk about in the spring. You're going out with a different setup than what you would ideally have. So there are a couple things to look at. Let's talk about the gear really quick. So compare the gear that you're going to go out opening day with compared to what you're going to go out in, let's say mid-April, late April into June.
So I go out with like 2 lures. I go out with the Mag Darters, the smaller ones. I'll use the bigger ones. And this is like the money color right here. This yellow, I started using this a couple years ago, and they just eat this up for some reason. For some reason, they enjoy this color. So I don't know what the draw is. Maybe it's just an annoyance, the color, but they eat that up. I just go out with those, and I go out with some Northeast Jig Plastics, the 4.5 inch with either 3/8 or 1/2 ounce jig heads. And to be honest, that's it. I bring a small bag, and those are the 2 lures I start off with. And obviously, like we talked, once the water temperatures get a little warmer, I have some broken back Yozuris I'll throw, red fins, things like that. But that's more like into like mid-April. But early on, especially the first couple weeks, if the water temperature is still around 40 or whatnot, it's just Mag Darter is real slow. So I just travel real light. Definitely nothing like the summertime where we got 4 of each lure and I'm carrying a couple bags. It's definitely a lot lighter, a lot more comfortable going in March and April, no doubt.
So you're scaling down the size. So what are those, 4.5, 5 inch?
Yeah. The 4.5. I won't throw anything bigger than that. Okay. Until I start seeing, I start making my way up the river. Probably. I mean, I could still get river fish, obviously in March, but I have a couple spots closer to me in the bay that are easy for me to go to. So I'll throw these. But then once I get up into the river and you start getting around the herring run, then the lure size will increase greatly. I mean, we'll throw 6-7 inch red fins as we get into mid-April. But again, that's depending on water temperature, how much sunlight we have, and how quick the flats warm up. But March, it's more or less just a night bite. I don't go out during the day until mid-April. So it's just nighttime, and Mag Darter is real slow. So,
and what size fish are you expecting to get in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season?
Well, we're not looking for any dinks. I can tell you that
Right.
much, because when the weather is the way it is, we're not going for that. And if that happens, I'll change locations. But last year was a weird March. Well, that was May there.
Okay.
That was a big fat river fish, and that was taken on this broken back Ozori, this herring pattern, and that was a fish that we fished for 2.5, 3 hours and not a bite. And as soon as I said I got 3 more casts and then I got to go to work, 2 casts later, 3 feet in front of me in about 1.5 feet of water, that cow came up and just blasted it. We got a couple picks, obviously let her go back. So,
Yeah.
but that's when the bite gets really, really fun. And in March, I'm not walking out to like chest high in that water temperature either. I wait till it gets a little bit warmer.
Right.
But no, it's just, it's a lot of nighttime, and a lot of the spots are my fall spots. A lot of those spots, they stage up at the end of the season, and they'll still be there, come early spring. But again, back to that water temperature, I know it's like the 4th time I mentioned it, but that's the make or break it at the beginning of the season. And that's why a lot of guys, they'll go out and, like I said, the last time we talked, I don't use any bait at all. I used to think, like everybody else did years ago, that, you had to go out with bloodworms and, big chunks of them on the hook and throw those early on to catch. But that's just not true. I mean, I've caught bass in March in water cold enough where I've had to go home because my thumbs were just so numb from actually grabbing the fish themselves, not putting my hand in the water, but just because the fish are so cold. And they were hitting mag darters like it was a feeding frenzy. That whole lockjaw thing. I don't know how much I really buy into that either. Maybe some of that's true if the water is really that cold, but I've caught them in high 30-degree water temperatures, and they'll strike again. They'll rip the rod right out of your hand. But 2 years ago, I think it took me until the summer to start catching smaller ones. But again, when we're talking dinks, let's talk South Jersey compared to North Jersey. I think in North Jersey, 32-inch fish is a dink up there. Down here, I'm not looking for anything shorter than 24, 25 inches. And again, come late spring, summer, that's a small fish for me. But now, anything 24 to 28. But 2 years ago, everything was 26 to 30 inches for the first 2 months. Like I couldn't catch a dink if I tried. That was all nice, solid, fat fish. And again, I don't know what they were eating over the winter, because I really didn't see a whole lot of bait. Maybe it was just those small bay anchovies or something real tiny, rain bait. But they were thick, fat fish. So we're just hoping for more of that as this year starts off. But you definitely can find quality fish, and you don't have to go into the rivers yet either. That's
right.
I go there when the bay seems to kind of lighten up, because again, I like going out on the side. I like doing that. When I go up in the river, I tend to wade out pretty far up there, and that's a grind. It's a lot of walking, a lot of trudging through the mud, things like that. It's just a little more easier on the side. You're not really doing a whole lot of that walking. I'm not really going far deep into a lot of spots like I do in the summer. These are, kind of closer to the bank spots. But we're just hoping it kicks off good. So.
Yeah, I've got to find some of those spots, because anytime I go striper fishing, it's like up to my knees in mud. It's not a good scene. I tried to fish around Atlantic City one year, and I ended up literally, my right leg was all the way up to my thigh, and my left was like on solid ground. Now, think of me, my size, with my knee in my mouth almost, and my other leg straight. I was like, well, how am I getting out of this? So,
and I'll tell you, when you're out there by yourself and that happens, it's more than a little sketchy. I mean, I said before that I fish Great Egg River a lot, and there's a couple of spots there where it's a long walk to get out to the water, and you have a lot of creeks that come up, and Google Maps will show you one thing, and then as you're walking, it's like, hold on a second. 40 minutes later, I'm walk in a circle, I'm kind of back to where I started. So it's a lot of practice to know where to walk, and a lot of this snow, rain you get early spring, it just it makes it real soft. And I've fallen in a couple of times, and where my full leg goes in, and I'm like up to my waist, and just like you said, kind of I got my gear here.
Yeah.
My one leg is all the way down in. I don't know. It's a little
That's
scary.
exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, it's just not. I don't worry about that on the side in the bay, but when you walk the side on the rivers, that tends to be a little different, at least for me, feeling wise.
Yeah.
And there's wherever I go on the side here, I never worry about that because I've been on it enough, and I know these spots. I could walk out there in the dark and not have any light and still know where to go. Even with a new moon and water really high, I could still do it. But the river, that bothers me a little bit if I'm not out there all the time. That's a tough grind.
Yeah, it's a little disconcerting. Ed, you ever have that happen to you? Getting stuck in the muck on the sod?
I'm
Come on, Ed.
On that one. No, actually, I mean, I would purposely get stuck. Like I used to clam all the time, so I was always looking for mud. But my brother-in-law got stuck in the mud pretty bad. He was up to his waist, both legs. I have a video of it somewhere. I'll just send it to you guys. It's actually quite funny. But
and I bring it up for a reason. It's funny, but it's something to keep in mind. You've got a night bite about to start in a couple of weeks, and a lot of people are going to be going out solo. So you got to be careful when you're out on the sod anyway at night. But be really careful when you have snow that just went through, or even after big storms in the summer, because it can happen. And I was out alone when that happened. Now I thought it was hilarious because I didn't have my truck at the time, so I had to put those waders back in my car at the end of the day. And you know how they smell.
It's a bad thing too because everything's dirty and and when you stink in the sod, that's a totally different smell from regular mud. It's not a regular smell. So.
Yeah, and you have to scrub it to get it off, and I didn't have anything to scrub it with, so I threw it in a trash bag inside another trash bag in a bucket in my trunk, and it's still. It was terrible. It was terrible.
I have two different pairs though. Like now I have two. I have a surf waders, and then I have sod waders because it's not. I used to use the same for both, and like my surf ones are a little more heavier.
Yeah.
On the boot wise, but to go on the sod, and let's just say you sink or you go down, you definitely don't want this heavy. Like you don't want something that's going to weigh you down. So traveling light usually helps too. But back to your point about watching where you're walking, like especially on new moons early in the year, like spots you don't know, let me get a little closer to the edge, a little closer. And before you know it, now you're over the bank and, the water's in the 40s. And so it's, no doubt. I go alone, so I don't, but if you don't really know where you're going, I really don't suggest that. Like make sure you have somebody with you, or again, you scout out the spots in the wintertime or kind of during the day. But, I made the mistake a couple years ago of just going those extra 2 or 3 steps and not going in, but, kind of sliding a little bit, getting to the point where, oh, hold on a second, let me, kind of got to crawl up a little bit and get back. So, but that extra 2 or 3 steps definitely isn't worth it's not worth the risk. It's just not, so.
And you got to be careful. The new moon, not just because it's dark, but just like the full moon, is going to bring the heavier tides, the spring tides.
Yep.
So it'll change what you're looking at. It won't look the same as normal. So if you're not used to it, just be careful.
Yep.
Had a comment in here, Andrew, who I will take Andrew's advice on gear all the time. He's just throwing out a rod there. The ODM DNA and Qua is validating the DNA. Yep. It's a good rod. I actually haven't used it, but I think everybody's heard of them and knows people that have used them. Quality rod, very good for the back bay. But I wanted to jump back to the waders. For people that don't really fish the backwaters, and you have 2 pairs. I use one, and I made the decision to get one for surf and use it also in the back. I want to point out my personal recommendation is don't get the stocking foot if you're ever going to be in the sod, because then you have to wear the corker boots or some other boots on top. those get incredibly heavy when you
Yep.
get into that muck, and when your foot gets stuck, which even the best people are going to get a foot stuck every now and then. It really starts to pull that thing, and then you're curling your toes so it doesn't pop off. So
Yep.
just keep that in mind if you're getting waders specifically for the backwaters. Yeah. So John, what about you? How are you doing the backwaters? Kayak?
Yeah, pretty much kayak anymore. I just haven't done too much backwater. For me, my early striped bass bite is over at DOD Beach down the street from work. It's off the Delaware River. So, and like you said, Chris, it's funny, everyone says, got to go out there with bait. And then give me a couple more weeks. I'm going to go down there with a couple X wraps and start chucking them at night.
Yep.
And you can catch nice 25, 26-inch bass,
Yep.
And that's enough for me until the cows start running, Yeah, you got guys getting, 50-pound bass when, you have those migratories coming up to spawn, on poppers at night. So that's pretty much my backwater anymore.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out, for those that aren't aware, Chris fishes artificials exclusively. I'm almost exclusive artificials. If I'm in a tournament for flounder, maybe I'll throw a minnow on one rod. Or if I'm obviously tog fishing or sheep's head, I'll use some live bait or dead bait. But in the spring bite, if you're going to fish artificials, and Chris, it sounds like you don't do this, but I've had a lot of success with artificial crustaceans and shrimp because they're typically looking for softer body things, mainly because that's what comes off of the sod banks in the spring. The shrimp are coming out, the crabs are coming back out. So they're kind of keyed in on that. Have you ever tried fishing with the artificial, crabs or shrimp or anything like that?
No, but I can relate to that though, in the regard that when I use soft plastics usually when I'm kind of catching fish closer to the bank, if that makes sense. But if fish are kind of further out, I tend to get them on the mag darter. So, maybe it's because of the softer bait and sort of like that imitation bait fish or a crustacean profile.
Right.
That's why the soft plastics do better for me if I'm catching fish closer to the sod itself or right off the bottom. If they're more in the center of the water column, or if they're, pounding it on top in cold water, which they will, you just need to find the right spot and the right tide that it's happening. But definitely if it's closer to the mud and the land itself, the softer plastics are the way to go. But I was just watching a video the other day of John Skinner, and let me tell you, if I came back in another life, that's the guy I would want to be. And he was throwing those imitation shrimps and whatnot, and it's just those things are incredible. Like, I don't think fish can really tell the difference with what they're throwing, because a lot of times they actually catch more fish on the imitation ones than they do the real shrimp. But those really work. I mean, and if you know how to fish them right and kind of bounce them off the bottom a little bit, and and that's the thing, no matter what lure you're using, you have to make it look natural. It's not just about, you could throw those imitation shrimp like all day, and if you're just reeling it straight in, I mean, that's not really what they're meant to do. But if you can match the way they actually react in the water, without a doubt, that can be deadly, especially in spring when, you scale down and you're just trying to kind of, match the bait that's around. So.
Right. Yeah. And they're, the interesting thing about the artificial, I think they work really well on striped bass. I use them almost exclusively, pretty much exclusively for flounder. However, you don't get that time with an artificial because they know once it's in their mouth and they're tasting it. Striper don't taste it. They just suck it in and it's gone and they're looking for the next. A flounder, it's going to mouth the thing. It's going to put it in its mouth. It's going to realize this ain't real, and it's going to spit it. So, you got to keep that in mind. I always think it's interesting though. You think of a gulp shrimp, right? And how you put that on a hook, you're putting it on backwards. It's moving unnaturally in the water when you're fishing it. So to your point, I don't know if they can always tell the difference between those things. Maybe it's just the gulp juice coming off of them, because the better shrimp imitation lures, like a DOA or something like that, a lot of them are being fished backwards. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are. So you get that action. So let's talk about where you're fishing. So we talked a lot in the fall about what you were looking for, and you're typically in, compared to me, much shallower water. You were fishing what, 8 or 6 feet and under, if I recall.
Yeah, and that's probably on a big moon. If it's not a big moon, it's probably I say 4 feet.
Okay.
Tops. But I've caught them just about dead low tide and maybe 2 feet of water, and the water's still like low 40. So that whole theory that you have to go deep, I don't have to do that. And I don't, as we talked the last time too, like I don't travel either. I don't go to North Jersey and follow that bite. I just don't, a lot of it's, I don't have the time. Like I used to do that. I used to go up to LBI and Surf City, higher than that, before I got married, before I had kids. I just don't have that time, especially to do it at night anymore. I don't go to Raritan Bay. I mean, it's fantastic fishing up there, but again, I just don't have all that time to do that. So I stay local. A lot of the spots I go to, again, are the same spots that in the fall, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes is probably the max from where I live. And I look for really the same things. The conditions for me to look for don't change. I just kind of look for the same moon phases, small windows again. Now, I'll do it a little bit longer in the spring because, again, it's a little more of a challenge. Sometimes the bite window is even smaller, so you kind of have to wait it out. But, I'll still 2 hour max is the window I'll go. I like to have a little bit of wind. I definitely don't like a calm, cold night. That just doesn't do it for me. Yeah, no, not at all. And I try to look for a little bit of surface action. Usually they'll show themselves at some point. Doesn't mean that they're not there if they don't. But if they show themselves, then I've had nights, again, in March where it's kind of like target practice, where there's one here, there's one here, one here, and all really, really solid fish. And again, just the Mag Daughters and the Northeast Jig Plastic. So a little bit of current. Once the current really picks up, that's kind of when the window really stops for me. Mm-hmm. But no, same conditions as the fall. It doesn't really change, and some of the spots are pretty much the same. So
let's take a look at some of these. Now, I realize some people in the future are just going to be listening, so you're just going to have to take our word for it. There's some nice fish in these pictures. So this I believe is a spring night bite for you.
Yeah, it was a little cold there. It was when I have the Stormer jacket on, it's cold because it's not the most comfortable jacket. It's a little bulky, but yeah, and that was first week of March last year, Northeast Jigs. So Betty White all night, as we say. It's the Betty White.
Yeah, I think it's, one of the great things about sharing this picture. And again, if you're just listening, I know there are a couple of people that that listen to they put it on their phone and listen to it when they're driving to work. So I apologize that you're not seeing this, but this is not a little fish by any means. This is a quality.
Now you could tell
fish.
by the mouth. Yeah, you could tell where I'm grabbing the mouth. I mean, that's probably almost 30 inches. So yeah, for March, that's a fantastic fish for down here by anybody's standards.
Yeah, and there's your yellow that pisses them off.
So yeah, that's the proof in the pudding right there, the Mag Daughters. And actually that night, again, these are all March, early April fish, but I remember that night there, and it was one after another. Like you couldn't throw it and not get a touch. So and the slower you crank it, the faster they were hitting it. So that just goes away with the theory that they won't hit plugs in cold water, because that's just not true too.
Right. Yeah, I think oftentimes those things become rules, and that people think they're rules, but they come from people that they don't know. They don't try it, so they say it doesn't work. People that don't know.
And there may be bigger fish underneath those that are sitting there to just to wait for something on the bottom. And again, if you throw out some bloodworms or whatever, that might be great. But as Chris we talked about before, we're out there creating the strike. I'm not, waiting for it. I want to make that strike happen. And you definitely can make that happen in March. You don't have to wait till the water warms.
Right. There's another one.
Another solid 30-inch fish. Again, definitely another cold night there, but that's another fish on plastic. So, and that's pretty far out on the side bank there. That's probably the furthest I'll go this time of year. But yeah, a little bit of running water on a big moon, and they were down there just waiting for a meal. So,
yeah, I was really glad that you gave me these pictures to share. One of the big things that I think is important is to let people know that there are quality fish. You're not just going out and you're catching dinks. Sometimes you are, and sometimes you have to pick through them to find the bigger ones. But the season, I think Jim Hutchinson had mentioned this when he was on a few weeks ago. Yeah. Just because the season starts on a certain day doesn't mean that's when the fish get there.
Right.
These fish are there. They're there today.
Yep.
The smaller fish have been there. The larger fish have been there. They're starting to move in. Now, it doesn't mean the whole biomass is there.
Right.
Just because it's March 1st doesn't mean that you're not going to get some really quality fish. And the spring is outstanding. And you don't have to have these big blitzes on the beach to know that they're there. They are there. These are all quality resident fish that are there year round. And that was there's a Betty White.
Third week of March last year. That was a nice solid 30-inch fish, and you could tell by the tail, like that fish gets really slim going back toward the tail. But I mean, that was a really nice solid fish. And you know what? I went to a fall spot. I went 3 nights in a row and didn't get a touch, and I kept going. Said, you know what? There has to be a good fish here. And I was an hour and a half in that night, just freezing, ready to give up. And I felt a thump. That made me stay a little bit longer, and then 2 casts later, just ate it up. So,
all it takes is one thump, and then one thump equals an annoyed wife when you get home.
Well, that's a whole other. Yeah, we won't talk about. That's a whole another episode. But and these are all night fish. I try to pick tides too that are after midnight. I just like to go at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because first of all, there's when it's wind chills like 25, there's tends to be less people out there, which is
right
better for me, especially if you take a couple pictures and people see the flash and whatnot. I mean, that's if I burn a spot myself, that's my own doing. But again, I try to just keep it at least to the local guys that know where those spots are. And but yeah, I'm ready to get out there in 2 weeks and see what's there. But one thing in the spring is I used to get not disgruntled, but I used to get disappointed, like the first couple of days if I wasn't getting fish.
Right.
But now, no, you just grind it out. But going back to the catching dinks and smaller ones in the spring, if I start and the first fish is really small, I'll immediately go somewhere else because that tells me that there's a school of small fish there. If I start off with getting a nice, really quality size fish, they tend to be the same size.
Yeah,
at least what I found early in the spring. They kind of run in packs together. Small fish with smaller fish, bigger fish with bigger fish. Even up the rivers in April and May, you can get some mixed bags. But usually when you start getting on solid fish and you get a bite where you're getting 30, 35-inch fish, you tend to get the same size fish together. Summertime, it's a little different. You can get everything mixed in, but when the weather's a little colder, at least in my experience, again, I'm not out in the boat, so you may find it different there, but at least from the bank, I find packs of the certain sizes together. So.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about the boat and / kayak. I'll just bring up last year. Let me get a picture here. So these are late March, early April fish. This is Raritan Bay, so it's a different size fish. But I was catching schoolies before I started pulling these in. This thing was, I believe, this was a 32-inch.
Yep.
On a soft plastic. And I'm just going to run through these real quick just to give a sense, like, further talk. I mean, look at the tail on this thing.
Sure. Yep.
I mean, that had some size to it. And it looks like I'm really far out, but actually on the other side of the camera, I'm really not that far from land. I think it was only about, I was right off of Staten Island actually. So I was only about an eighth of a mile, maybe a quarter of a mile off.
Yep.
There's another one. This one topped 40. But yeah, I mean, these are spring fish. And there's another one. So just to point out, like, you're going to get them now out in the boat though. I was catching schoolies. And what I did is I got under them, and that's where I pulled these out. So the bigger ones were on the bottom. Every once in a while, you could see where all the schoolies would just scatter, and then these guys would roll through. I mean, there was absolute blitz on huge bunker pods going through. So that's where I would say it's a little different. But in the backwaters, I really can't think of a time where I've seen mixed size fish swimming together. It's like you said, they go in classes. You have like the 16-inch to the 22-inch. Once you get, then maybe the 22 to 26. But once you get above that, then you're talking, you can get the 28 to the 35s, and it kind of moves in blocks like that.
I want to try to get out in the kayak more, or like early season this year, and go up to a couple river spots earlier than times that I would target them from land. Because I know, a bunch of areas where they school up at, but from the bank, I can't get to them.
Right.
And, when the tide really starts turning, it would be a little tough for me because I don't have a pedal drive. I just paddle, but there's enough of flats up there where I can kind of stay out of the current and do my thing. But, river access down here is really restricted. So much of it is private property, and, you can launch up at the bulkhead, in Mays Landing and a couple other spots. But when you get into April and fish up there, again, it's a lot of time and finding fish. Fish are, like we said about the bay, that they're always there. You just really need to be able to hunt around and not get discouraged, and can't be afraid to try different spots.
Right.
A lot of spots, like I won't go to. We're not burning anything here because everybody knows it and everybody blasted up. But like, I won't go to Jeffers Landing. I won't go to the Trestles of Mays Landing anymore. Like, and again, that's not, people want to get mad for me saying that. That's on them. But that's, those are well-known. Those are well-known spots.
Yeah.
And we can thank certain other people for blowing them up bigger than what they used to be.
That was 2 years ago that they really got blown up.
Well,
the one. I think it was 2-3 years ago.
Yeah,
Jeffers.
Yeah. I just, right. Yeah, and again, well, we'll move on from that. But but there's a ton of other spots that are so much better. But you can't be afraid to put the work in. Like, it may take you a whole season to figure it out.
Right.
But then, as that season closes and now you're into summer, fall, now it's, oh man, I can't wait to get, and that's what I did, especially with the Back Bay sod thing early on, was I never really had a lot of luck when the weather was cold. So it took me a season or two to kind of figure it out. And Mag Darters is another lure that, it takes time on the water to figure those out. It's not just, if the fish are biting good enough, you could just throw it out there and kind of reel it in. But
yeah,
when the water's cold, the slower you reel those, it actually stays closer to the top. So it'll be like, well, but if the fish are on the bottom, so, you figure out a way to get that, it's called a darter. So you get it down deeper, and then you work that slow retrieve. So you can't be afraid to kind of just throw away a whole season to learn new spots, because if you're just relying on the spots that are publicly out there, sometimes it's just not enjoyable. I just can see it now. And it's funny because last year when the videos were out there from Jeffers Landing, and it wasn't from bait shops, it was other guys that were putting it out there.
I know exactly who it was.
Yeah, the campfires and all that other bullshit.
Right.
I would drive by there just to count the cars. And there were days where I counted 23 cars.
Yeah.
lined up along there. And that's not just one person per car. Some of those guys were 3 or 4 together, and you look out at the bank and, then you wonder why we lose access to spots.
Yeah. And let's be honest. If those people in the 23 cars, somebody's going to get mad when I say this, but we already had to ban one person from chat tonight. But if more of those people understood what to look for, they wouldn't need to go to Jeffers Landing. They would be able to find their own spot with less people, maybe even 0 people. And that's one thing that I really like about the kayak. When I'm out in the kayak, it's a busy spot if there's one other person there.
Right.
There were times that we went into a creek this past summer and somebody was in there and plenty of room to fish. We're like, all right, we'll move on because we have another 60 spots within 2 miles that we can go check out that we kind of mapped out in the past. So, but it brings up a topic that was in chat, and I'm not going to put it on the screen right now, but it brings up the that's my jam, is just saying, the mentality of keeping things a secret versus sharing with the masses. And I do want to mention just one thing. You have to be very careful about spot burning, especially when you're talking about land-based fishing, because of the access, losing access, and the fact that these guys cannot just jump in the kayak or jump in the boat and just motor over somewhere else. It's very limited. Now, we're not as screwed as Virginia. I think it's Virginia where literally you can't get on the water anywhere. And they own parts of the water. People actually own out into the water. So New Jersey, New York, you're better off, but you got to be careful. You got to be respectful. I try to do that. I like to share my spots because I have so many of them. But there are certain spots that I will never share, especially if somebody gives me a spot. I'm not going to share an exact location. There's a couple of spots that people are asking me about constantly, some of the more popular videos, and I can't share them because I went there with somebody else for the first time. And they said, look, I want to show you this. So I just wanted to say that you got to be careful with spot burning. I will show anyone how to find their own spots, but more and more I'm getting a little bit more leery about saying fish here, fish there. I'll show you how to find your own and you go find it. If you listen to what I said, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about in the screen that you just sent to me. But I'm not going to tell you exactly.
And that's why I'll give examples of places that are, well known, but that's as far as it goes. And again, there's people that disagree with that, and they just they look at it a whole different way and say, well, guys like you, they just like me, I'm talking, why do you catch such hard feelings when people post photos and talk about certain areas? And again, it's not really about, it's somewhat about catching fish but it's about the access, because again, you look at, there could have been 23 cars lined up, but if there weren't videos being shot, nobody would know there's 23 cars there, and there wouldn't be this whole, mass chaos. So it's why does it have to be like that? But that's where, I like to do the real late night thing. And again, up until a couple of years ago, I would go at night once in a while, but I did a lot of day stuff too. Now it's just kind of to go at nighttime and just, get away from everyone and kind of just do my thing and really, concentrate on the task at hand, get done and get home and, get some quality fish, hopefully in the meantime. So,
well, you have to be careful because now everybody's going to be looking for you, including me. I'm going to be out there scoping you out.
Yeah, it's funny because Jim Hutchinson used to always say that he was going to put a tracker on my SUV or whatnot, and that's how the whole blindfold thing came up or whatnot. But again, I mean, there's a lot of people that catch a lot more fish than I do, and that's so again, I just do it for different reasons. It's not about catching the biggest fish. It's not about any of that. It's just that's always been a really big part of my life, and just the time away from everything, from work, from regular everyday stress, and it's something that I feel that I'm pretty good at. And again, it's just that self-gratification. It's not about anything else other than that for me. Just getting better at what I know how to do, and picking up tips from everybody else and kind of putting that together and kind of making it your own. But and that's again another reason why I won't burn spots. I've had guys that have shown me spots over the years, and I just won't I just won't do it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not being an asshole by not taking people there or just not saying anything. But then there's other guys that, you know, I fish with that know 50 more spots than I do. And they won't even tell me. You know, there's guys that I'm really, really close to, and they just won't, or they won't tell me when they're going. They'll tell me after they get home.
Yeah.
But that's the way we do it. And it's not just, it's not to, you know, it's just not to be nasty. It's, you know, again, we all have our own reason for going and the experience we want to get out of it. If I wanted a bunch of, you know, hoopla and running around, then it would be a different story, but that's just not for me. I just like the independence and that's reward enough for me. So.
Yeah, I agree. I want to make sure John's going to have to duck out of here shortly. So, John, did you have any things you wanted to bring up?
No, it's
good.
I'll keep listening on the way to work, like I normally do. So
we're going to finish that rod, all right?
Yeah,
do that rod.
Chris, I'll touch base with you within the next day or two.
You got it.
Because I'm going to be heading down Thursday. I got to stop by Chris's, and then I'm going to go stop over at Chucky's and look at what he's got. So
okay, cool.
All right.
Well, let me know
What's up,
what time that's going to be, because I have your rod here.
Yeah, it's probably going to be the morning, so I will let you know though.
Yeah, let me know.
All right.
All right. See you,
gentlemen.
John.
Thanks. Have a good night.
See you, bud.
So Chris, one thing that I wanted to ask, and I think is important. So you're fishing the shallower water. Are you fishing that? Or let me ask it this way: are you noticing a bigger push towards shallow water in the cold water because it warms up quicker, or is it just consistent with the fall? You know, the fall would be the opposite. You know, they're not necessarily looking for the warm water, but are you focusing really in on the shallows first and then moving around?
Yeah, I think a lot of it again just depends on that water temperature where I start out at. You know, a lot of the bay down here feeds off the river, which you know is overflow from Lake Lenape, so that's warmer water to start with that comes down there and then flows into the bay. So you have that factor. It depends on the actual ocean temperature.
Yeah.
You know, with that water moving in for the tide, and then if it pulls out, how much sunlight we had during the day, if the mud flats can heat up. So it's really going to depend on that last week of February. And see what type of weather we have. You know, I don't have a whole lot of luck when it goes down again, like I said, in the 20s at nighttime.
Right.
When it's like mid 30s, around 40 at nighttime, and seems like that's going to take forever to get there this year. It just seems like that's
it's
far
common.
off thing, but that's where it gets to be, you know, a lot more consistent. But again, it's really like a trial process that first week of March to see where that water temperature is going to hold and where that warmest water is. So I want to try to find the warmest water in whatever area I am. And again, that may be up on a flat, or it could be in the current. You know, It could be incoming tide, it could be outgoing tide. It's just, you know, there's some guesswork when it comes to that first week. But usually once you can figure that out, you can, you know, you're pretty good for the next couple of weeks then, because the bite's only going to get better and the water's only going to get warmer.
Yeah, I'm at the point right now where, I mean, the weather has been horrible on the weekends, and again, I travel down from Pennsylvania, so I'm not coming down in those big snowstorms that you guys had.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Man, you guys got
horrible.
nailed this year. We got almost nothing.
We got 19 inches here. That storm, we had 19 inches, and I was ready to cry.
I was ready to fish that day. I was like,
yeah,
damn it, another storm. I'm not going down.
And again, I was looking back at Facebook 2 years ago, and it was like 55 degrees.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, this is just not. But I would rather it happen then than to have a snowstorm like that the end of this month, because you know you have all that snow melt that really changes the salinity of the water, even in the bay. That's enough to shut a bite down, or at least change the pattern. But then you'll have also those cold snaps that come in March too, where you know we could have real nice consistent water temperatures and on a nice incline, but then you have, you know, a front come through where you're down into single digit wind chills, and now all of a sudden that water temperature drops 5-6 degrees over the matter of 24 hours. So that good bite you had for 2 weeks now is, you know, just kind of shuts down. So it's March is a tough month, but it can be a rewarding month too, again, because it's so cold. And when you find some good quality fish, it definitely makes it all worth it. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking about. I was thinking, what is the first is what a Tuesday night?
Yep.
Or Tuesday morning. I
And so
guess.
Tuesday morning, so it would be that
Yeah.
Monday night at midnight, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about taking off on that Tuesday, but a lot of it's going to come down to what the water temperatures do and what the air temperatures do over the next couple of weeks. Right now, it's not looking great, but it's not looking bad either. I mean, there's going to be some warm days coming up, so I may be hitting the sod somewhere down there. Actually, I might just bring the kayak and launch in the backwaters and do some night fishing that way. Maybe
It looks like
playing
not this
hooky.
coming week, but the following week. It
Well, if
looks
it's a
like Monday,
Tuesday, I'm
Tuesday, Wednesday, 60 degrees. So and 40s at nighttime. So
That's
that
perfect.
could be really good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the good news to talk about the salinity, we have almost nothing in the runoff as far as snow up here. We had no snow. I think in where I live now, it's different in, county to county, town to town, but we got a total of 4 inches all winter. We're usually a couple of feet in by now. So
I think we're up to
hopefully that
33
helps.
now in EHT. We're up to 33 inches for this year.
But that's gone, as long as that's gone, and I think you
Yep.
lost most of it. As long as that's gone early, that shouldn't mess with the salinity too much. So fingers crossed things come together. It'd be nice to be able to get out there, just take a day off of work and, get down there at midnight, get some hot drink and maybe I'll hit the kayak and fish the bridges or something in the back, fish some lights. The lazy
It's kind of
way.
it's like a ceremonial thing for me. Like again, whatever the weather is, I'll just watch, the tide and whatever tide I want to target and watch a little wind, but again, I'll go either way and won't be disappointed if there's nothing there. But yeah, if I can, anytime I can get a fish on March 1st is a really good night. That's mission accomplished. So that's,
Yeah, that'd be nice. I wonder how many people watching are planning to fish the first, at whether it's at midnight or later or at least before the first weekend. In other words, who's taking off of work or getting down during a weekday onto the water to get out there? I intend to. I can't promise it. Ed, what are you thinking?
Honestly, it wasn't even a thought in my mind until you guys just brought it up. So, but if it falls on a Tuesday, I'm off. So I'm down.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, Ed right now is focused on perch, so we're trying to get a perch trip going. And again, I don't think Ed, you haven't fished in even longer than me. So I'm dying to get down there.
Me and
I'm sure
Mike
there'll
did a
be some-
perch trip, but that was it. That was December.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some bass mixed in with those perch too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could literally go out in some of these areas, and but you better be sure that you're ready for those striper, because the last thing you want to do is leave a hook in its mouth because you went too light. So you're going to have to back off the freshwater trout rods and go.
Dude,
with
that's
the
so much
gear.
fun. I'm telling you, it's so much fun.
Yeah. Even if you're fishing for perch at that time, you better be, you're going to have to go to a little bit of a heavier ride. We got Qua's mid-March, but I think Qua is going out mid-March because that's when his boat's probably going back in. All right, so mid-March, that makes sense.
We got to get you in a pedal drive, Chris.
Yeah, I know. I got to give up one of these other hobbies, and then I can get into that. So yeah, it's if a lot of the spots I go to down here, I'm good. Like with the paddle, it's not really. It's just when it's windy.
Yeah,
having to keep that position because now I'm, paddling around. I'm going with the current, but I'm trying to cast at the same time. So, yeah, I really pick and choose the days I go. But with a pedal drive, yeah, that's the goal over the next 2 years. This year, I want to get into the fly rod, more fly rod on the flats as the weather warms up. So that's the goal for this year. And then maybe we can, do a pedal drive next year or whatnot. But yeah, I think that's kind of what the game is coming to at some point is, the kayak thing is really taking off, and, you just get out there by yourself and get away from the crowds, and you get into an open bay and you see some side banks, whatnot. You get some good electronics on there and look at the contour of the bottom. I mean, the opportunities are endless.
Yeah.
Once you get into that water, you could go anywhere and find so many spots, and, there's nobody around for miles some days. So, yep.
The kayak opens up. it opens up so much more. Like Rich, that spot I showed you over the summer. We found what 40, almost a 40-foot hole somewhere where you would not ever in a million years.
It's not on Navionics. It's not on the charts.
No,
and it's 40 feet,
40 foot at a mid tide. So it wasn't.
Yeah, the charts say it's 8 feet.
The charts show it as mud.
Is it mud? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it's in the drying area, the green area, what's called a drying area on Navionics.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned about the paddle kayaks. I mean, I fished those for over 20 years, and that's all I knew. And I thought didn't need anything else. But my favorite story, Dan and Carey from Tide Chasers, his story about when he got in his paddle one, and next thing he knew, the wind had blown him so far it took him like an hour to get back to his spot.
Yep.
And he's like, "That's it, I'm done."
I've been there. Yep.
Now he's got. I guess he saved that for, his family, but he's now in the pedal kayak. But we'll have to get you out. John's picking up in a second pedal kayak this year. We'll have to get you out there. Maybe we can convince you to fish in one of the tournaments with us down in southern Jersey.
Oh yeah, I'd love to do that. That'd be great. Going back to the pedal, the paddle kayak and getting blown with the wind. That's happened to me a couple times, and I'll tell you, the wind picks up and you get caught in some rips in the bay, and you're far from home.
Yeah,
that's a long, wet ride.
I'm not going to name names, but I went out with someone I took my kayak on its maiden voyage. The person I went with had a paddle only kayak, and with the wind, where we were going, the wind was at our backs. When we turned around, the wind was in our face, and the tide was against us.
Forget it.
So I ended up having to tow said person home because he ran out of steam. He couldn't.
That's humiliating. It happens.
At least I had the tide going with me. The wind was coming against me, but it was a real heavy outgoing tide, and I was pretty close to a channel, so I was able to get in there and kind of like ride it out. But when you're on a paddle and you're far away, that's an interesting day to say the least.
Yeah, well, you're also in great shape too, which helps.
It used to be, not anymore. Not anymore.
Like you are.
Yeah, but those days are. I get better than the average, I guess, but not like.
Not like you want to be paddling into the wind for an hour.
No, we're not doing that anymore. No, because then for like 4 days, you can't even like feel your lats under there. It's like, it's tough. Where I'd much rather do it with my feet and kind of do it that way. But, I know a lot of guys, they'll sit out March or they'll sit out the first couple of weeks and they won't do a whole lot of cleaning until March. And again, I'm not, regardless of what I catch, I'm going to be happy. For me, again, it's about creating the strike and going out and doing what's kind of hard to do. And that's catch, aggressive bass in really cold water. But, again, to each their own. And, some guys sit it out. It could be raining, whatever, the 30 mile an hour wind on March 1st. And I'm still going to go because it's, there's different reasons why we all go. So there's no doubt.
Yeah. I've done it in the snow, in a kayak.
Yeah.
Had a drawbridge person. Are you all right? I'm like, I'm out here on purpose. She's like, I've just seen if you're nuts. I was like, no, I'm sane. Not catching anything, but I'm sane. And I'm catching one striper.
I used to do that in December.
Nice.
I used to go on snowy days just on purpose so I could get a picture with a bass in the snow. It happened twice, but then I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. So I kept going back to the truck after 20 minutes to warm up for 20 minutes and then go out and fish for 20 minutes and back. Cause I've never found, I don't like to wear gloves at all. Even spring, I won't wear them, period. But in the fall, I've yet to find a pair of gloves that I've found gloves that can keep my hands warm, but I just can't feel, it's hard for me to feel the line. It's hard for me to just get used to it. Again, some guys can do that. It's just very difficult for me. So I kind of go all the time without gloves, but there's a price to pay for that too. So some nights, like I said, where the water was that cold, where the fish were cold and my thumb was froze, I had to go home. There's nights where I'll just have to give it up, not because the fish aren't biting, but because my hands just can't take it anymore. So,
yeah, I've had the difficulty with fishing the cold weather. And I usually wear fingerless gloves. which
Yep.
makes it easier to cast. However, once your finger goes numb, you don't know if it's cutting you. You don't know if you have too much
Can't
pressure.
get it back.
So you
Yep.
end up slicing. Yep. So I ended up having to put tape on my finger. And then it's the same thing as just wearing the glove. I find it really difficult personally for casting, which is probably why I mentioned that I would be going out in the kayak, because you don't have to cast as far. At least in my experience, where I've typically fished, it's not like I'm vertical jigging for them, but I can get in real tight to the structure off to the side and just kind of work my way down with 40-foot cast, 20-yard cast, and then I'm in good shape. So 40-60-foot cast, it's not going to cut your finger off, but I've come close to cutting my finger off because I didn't feel it. I just looked down and I'm like, why is it warm? No, why is it red? Where's my finger?
And it's kind of like you're just waiting for your fingers to go, because you know that at that point it's at least, for me, it's time to tap out. I mean, I have enough good heavy Stormer gear, other kind of brands, whatever, but I made that investment because it's definitely worth the money when you buy those type of brands, because they definitely do the job. But even there's nights where I won't need full waders, but I'll go with the waders on. They're not neoprene or anything, but just to have that extra layer over top. And the face mask and whatnot. So it's never really about anything else getting cold. It's just the fingers.
It's the fingers.
Yeah, it's just a countdown for when that's going to happen, and then it's time to call it a day. So,
I've got to say, for anyone that wants to go out in March when it's still cold, you mentioned Stormer. I picked up a Stormer striker jacket this year. Man, that thing actually gets hot.
It does. Because in the fall, it's too hot for me. Yep.
Yeah, it gets hot. But God, it's so nice because literally no wind cuts it. It's totally waterproof. I've had stuff spilled on it and it literally just runs right off of it. I love it. Now it's expensive. And for the people that don't know me, I don't have nice stuff, right? My stuff is utility stuff so that's my only winter coat. So I wear it all the time and that thing is awesome. And I did pick up the Stormer gloves. And I will say this about them. I think they're the striker gloves. They're a little uncomfortable. I don't know if you've ever tried them. If you haven't, don't. They have in the finger, they have this, like the seal that goes on the seams.
Okay.
But it goes right between your fingers. So it feels like you had a pencil between your fingers. So anytime you make a fist, it feels like you have like a sharp pencil in there. So
are they neoprene or what are they made out of?
Yeah, they're neoprene. I wish I had them here. They're just sitting out in the truck, but they're nice unless you're fishing and you're trying to move your hand a lot. Like my left hand's fine. It doesn't bother my left hand, but my right hand, and try putting it around try holding the reel and putting your finger like that.
Right.
My God, that just makes it worse because it just digs into it. I mean, at least a red mark.
I agree with the investment though for the winter gear though. Like if you're going to go out there in March and April, again during those cold spells, it can be very uncomfortable not having the right gear. So if you put a lot of time in on the water, and it's definitely worth the investment because again, you're not getting just a year or two out of those jackets. You can
they're going to last forever.
Wear those jackets forever. So, whether you're paying $250, $300 or, one of the lighter, I have one of the lighter, it's heavier than their basic rain gear. It's kind of like a mid-grade one, but like
it's the Typhoon, I think, right?
Yeah. And that's fantastic. That's all I wore all fall up in the surf.
Yeah.
And, a sweatshirt underneath and it's great. But the fishing in March becomes very uncomfortable if you're not dressed for it. And I used to just, let me put a couple layers on now, because now you put one of those jackets on and you just have this on underneath.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's 30 degrees outside, but I'm sweating underneath and that's just fine with me. I'll take that any day of the week.
Oh, me too. I love it. I love it. And then my neck gets cold and I just kind of pull it open and I can feel the heat come out.
Yep.
Right up here. I'm like, oh, that's good. Yep. But I've got the full thing. I got the full face. My daughter actually got me for Christmas some good gloves that are very comfortable and waterproof, and a really good mask. I don't recall. Again, they're out in the truck waiting for the next fishing trip, but it is important. Pay for the gear. You'll be happy. I can recommend Stormer. Not sponsored by them. No affiliation with them. I just spend money with them. They're local also. If I remember correctly, I think they're a New Jersey company. Not 100% sure about that, but I think they started in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So that's always a plus. All
I'm
right.
waiting for Captain Hanks. I'm waiting for Captain Hanks to start putting out some jackets. He's doing so good with the tackle. Let's get out some of that heavy apparel.
Yeah. He's got the sweatshirts.
I was gonna say there's hoodies on the website.
And I'll tell you, I was so impressed by the jigs that he makes that, this year, and everybody knows that I use Northeast Jig Plastics exclusive for the last 3 years. And, I'm going to use all his stuff this year, and I can't wait to use some of those lighter bucktails. That's one thing I wanted to really, really hone up on this year. And again, it's just about making myself better and being more well-rounded, is using lighter jigs, bucktails in the bay. I've used, half ounce, 3/4 ounce in some current, but, I like to go with, some quarter, 3/8 ounce. And, he's making a bunch for me. So I really can't wait to get out and start using them, but he's got really good stuff. If anybody wants to get some good quality, homemade, local tackle, those guys in Philly, Northeast are an example of what can happen when you put out good quality stuff. And, it kind of just, you get a lucky, not a lucky break, but you get a really good break. And, you're really good, nice guys, quality product, willing to work with people, very responsive to inquiries online, good shipping, and Ed seems to be doing the same thing. So I'm looking forward to using some of his stuff. And I know a lot of guys that, fish with him in Atlantic City and used his stuff. I think, Don uses a lot of your stuff, right? Don't you have one named after Don Voss, right?
Yeah, Don's on the pro staff, but yeah.
Yeah, he's that kid's a beast right there. I mean, he puts a ton of time in, and he knows his areas probably better than just about anybody else. And he's use a lot of Ed's products, and I'm just I like to try different stuff, and every year I go in, try to take a different lure and kind of do my own thing with it. And I'm going to use a lot of his stuff this year. So
I appreciate that, Chris. That means a lot, man. Thank you.
Good stuff. Listen,
I can tell you, I use them.
Yeah, and we talked the other day about I think John mentioned it either in a conversation we were having, or I think Chris commented on something, and then John commented, and I commented, and that's, I think, was great about the type of relationship that guys like us form. That it's not a measuring contest for us. It's about building relationships and just really sharing the experience. Because again, I could talk all day. It's funny. The last time we did the thing, one of the guys said, "Hey, if he stops talking long enough, I have this question."
Yeah.
Like I could just,
that was Diesel. Diesel said that.
Like I could talk all day because I enjoy it so much. And I don't hang out with a lot of people that really understand and get the journey itself, not just about the fish. Like, I'll come home or I'll go out 2 or 3 in the morning and my wife will be like, catching it. Nah, I didn't get anything. Well, you got out of bed to go for that and whatnot. But again, it's not about that for me. Yes, sometimes it's frustrating when you should have a good night and you don't. But the things you see, you hear, the what you learn, how you hone your craft every time you go out, and how your journey started from when you were a kid and the reasons why you did it then, using your skills, freshwater, converting that into saltwater. Like that's just all. That's the stuff I love to talk about. And my uncle in Pennsylvania had a tackle shop close to where I grew up at. So I remember going to his tackle shop and him giving me pointers and whatnot. And so now when I see local guys that are coming up with product, and probably because they're better at making it than I have. I mean, I've never attempted, but again, I don't know if I have the patience to really just kind of start from scratch. Maybe one year I will, but I give those guys all the credit in the world, and all these big manufacturers that started from somewhere. Yeah. Rapala, Yuzuri, it all started in somebody's basement with an idea, and why not give somebody the opportunity to showcase their product? And that's where Chris is so great in Summers Point. Is there's really nobody that I know and he'll tell you the same thing, where if you go to him with a product and you're local and it's something that's different or you want to showcase, he'll find rack space for those people, and he will push that local product. And I know where he talked last year, he did that for you. So, I mean, what's greater than that? Right. I mean, how fantastic is that?
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it should be. That's absolutely the way it should be. And we've talked before on here that it's all about supporting your local areas. So if you're up in New York, find the guys up in New York. If you don't find them, find somebody who is a small business trying to get going somewhere, and support them. You mentioned Northeast. I'm going to be fishing Northeast this year. I'm getting rid of the Z-Man, which is also actually a smaller business, despite how big they are now. They're not. They're recently big, but I'm going to be fishing that. Ed and I. I mean, we've got a pretty good relationship, and I switched over to only using his stuff. Now, I was already using a local tackle company before, and I wasn't unhappy, but I'm very happy with the Captain Hanks tackle, and it's held up well. Ed's very responsive to things. I mean, he showed earlier in the stream he made custom lures that I've been trying for years to get, and I had mentioned before there was another guy who did an awesome job, but he's a fly tire, right? So the prices were just they're what you get from a custom fly tire. And we were, Ed and I were talking. We want to have something that's a little bit more realistic, so you're not spending $8 per bucktail. So I'm extremely happy with Ed's stuff. I'm jealous of Ed. And John.
Me too.
I really love the rods that John makes. And John will say, "Well, I'm just new to this. I got so much to learn." Yeah, get it. I absolutely get it. In the meantime, slaying fish with your stuff and Ed's stuff. And I'm supporting some guys that are good people, love to talk fishing. I mean, look, we got anywhere from 20 to 30 people in watching this at a time. They're all like us. We're all together. We're just guys that just want to talk fishing, want to hang out, help each other out. And I think it's working out well. And that's what I just keep looking for. It's like Tide Chasers podcast, local guys doing something really cool with fishing. So, listen to them every week. You're right though. You come home and your wife's like, "Did you get anything?" No. Well, you wish you didn't get up. It's like, right. No, no. I'm glad I got up. Yeah. I'm glad I'm exhausted right now. Absolutely.
And when it all comes together and it pays off, just that anticipation the night before, because I'll admit, and I've admitted on other shows, like if I know that there's a nice solid bite possibly waiting, like it's tough for me to sleep. Like I'm just kind of still like a kid in a candy store. I mean, that's again about the experience for me, just like lure making. Like I'm sure at this point, Ed and John, it's not really about the money at this point, hopefully someday. Right. But it's about the experience, and it's about seeing not just themselves, but other people catch fish on a product that came out of their hands. Yep. So, why would me or other guys not want to push that? I mean, that's not, John, he just started doing rods, but listen, if the rod's not breaking in my hand, I don't care about any imperfections along the handle or on the wrap. Like I don't really care about that. Some guys, they're $400 or $500 for this fancy wrap, but the rod could break in half. Like me, again, if it's a quality product, and it's imperfect, so what? That doesn't matter.
It's funny. I tell John, I'm like, it annoys him. I can say this because he's listening in his car right now and he can't say anything back. I piss him off every time that we talk about a new rod because all I want is a black on black rod with a cork handle. That's it.
Yep.
And he's like, well, I can do this wrap. I've got this wrap. It's like, I don't want it. I don't need it. If you feel like you need to put it on there, go ahead. Doesn't matter. And he'll give me these beautiful rods. I'm like, it's awesome. It's like, I could have done better. And like, no, it's awesome. But I just want a rod that works, and that's where I like fishing black on black. It's just plain. I don't care if anyone's staring at the rod that I'm using or gets jealous of the rod I'm using. They can get jealous because it's performing. Right. I don't care what it looks like. Drives him nuts, as it should. I mean, he's a custom rod builder. Drives him crazy. Just like if I were to go to Ed. Now, this isn't true, but if I were to go to Ed and say, all I want is white, he'd be like, really? Just white bucktails, nothing else. Yeah, just white. It would annoy him too. but you're right. You know, it's not all about the money. I mean, hell, this channel makes nothing. I've lost. I mean, I just bought a new laptop. I won't make enough on this channel in 4 years to pay even half of that. So, so I mean, we're putting out, you know, $50-$60 a month just for the streaming platform. We're not bringing, we're not bringing any of that in, but I think that's what, you know, that's like everybody that's watching this is the same way. You know, it doesn't matter. It's not all about the money all the time. Yeah, it'd be nice to make something, but it's just about the passion of fishing.
Yeah, it's a nice platform. I mean, this is a great show to go out and just to talk.
Yep.
Just to talk, and you know, it's not scripted. We don't do questions ahead of time. We don't do it. Kind of just flows, and where the conversation leads, it leads. And I have a fantastic time every time I talk to you guys, either here or offline. Yeah, it's again part of the full experience, not just the catching, but talking about, you know, the experience and the journeys that we go on. So,
yep. Well, I think that's probably a good place to draw it to a close. Everybody, thanks for checking in. Really appreciate it. We're still working on who's coming on next. We're trying to get the guys from Northeast Jig. They're coming on. It's just a matter of when we can work out the schedule. Yeah, Koala and Tide Chasers knows about that too. He's, you know, they're tough to get. They're busy guys. So
I can't even get Mike down here to fish very often. We've only fished together once or twice, but I tell you, when I, you know, asked for, you know, a certain type that they really weren't making at one point, I mean, they took care of me, and you know, and Ed's the same way. Listen, what colors do you want? What patterns do you need? Like, and he'll show me samples. Like that's why I love this sport.
I'll give you all a sneak peek.
Is to meet people like that. Come on.
Yeah, let's zoom in on that. Hold that back up again.
Hold on.
That's great.
Let me comb it out. It's a little.
This is going to be out on March 1st.
That's
beautiful.
Lights out as far as I'm concerned. So
yeah, that'll be hitting the water on March 1st.
March 1st at a side bank near you. That's where it'll be. So
that's awesome. So, all right. Well, Chris, thanks again for coming on again. I'd have you on every week if I could, but we'll let you get some fishing in.
Pleasure. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Ed, anything you want to hit real quick before we go, or?
No, I mean, I wanted to add on, you know, with the whole Captain Hanks thing, because I didn't expect you guys to be like talking about me. You know, me and a friend started the business, and he ended up stepping away. So now it's, you know, under my belt. We only wanted to make enough tackle to cover our costs, so that way we could have stuff to fish. You know, now it's starting to turn into an animal, but you know, I never thought it would get that far. So, you know, to all my past customers and future, present, everybody, I just want to say thanks, because it's starting to become more, you know, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. And for this channel, the goal is help as many people as possible, catch as many fish as possible in a little bit amount of time that real people have on the water, which is always limited. Yes, it would be nice to be able to have a career doing this. I don't know that that's ever going to happen, but with that said, hold on, let me ban this person in the chat right here. Bye-bye.
We got some weird ones tonight.
Yeah, we've got ISIS in the chat, literally, or not ISIS, whatever, Osama bin Laden. They're touting Osama bin Laden. Now we have some Russians. Yeah, but you know, so with that said, there are some things that I am doing to try to expand. We've got the course, which actually will be done before the end of next week. So it'll be early launch. So the pre-order is almost over. People want that. It's you can go to fatdadfishing.com, and right on there you can click the link and you can get the course at a pre-order price, $47. Using the coupon code Fluke Launch, that'll get $150 off. The price is going to go up once it's launched, and the reviews from the people that have previewed the class already, really good. So I'm really happy about that. Hopefully it helps a lot of people. It's still not going to make a ton of money on it, but that's not really the goal. The goal is to help as many people as possible. Last thing is, actually, it's funny. Jack just put this. Any more on the meetup in Oaks, PA this Friday. So Friday is the Philadelphia Expo at the Oaks Expo Center. So John and I are going to go. Ed is unfortunately working that day. So he's not going to be able to make it. But John and I are going to be there. We're going to be walking around. There are a lot of people I want to talk to. I want to meet in person when I'm down there. And I am fortunate enough that it's only 20 minutes from my house. So I actually might go multiple days over the weekend. I did take off work on Friday though. So we'll be there. Jack, if you want to shoot me an email, I'll give you my cell number. You can text me and maybe we can meet up somewhere. Just say hi. But for people that haven't been to the Oaks Expo, it looks like a dump, but man, the expos that they have there are amazing. Brought it up last time. The gun show there is outrageous. Just so many vendors. I think they have 1,100 tables. I don't know how many they have this upcoming weekend, but it's a lot. There are a lot of really quality vendors that are going to be there, and some good seminars as well. Qua is going to be there at the Century booth. Qua, for those that aren't aware, Tide Chasers, as he says here, I'll put it up in here so I don't get yelled at for saying it, but I can read it. Qua says, I will be there. Look for the Asian guy with the Tide Chasers hoodie. Yeah, we'll find you. We'll find you, Qua. Yeah, so John and I will be there walking around. John was going to wear his Captain Hanks hoodie, but he's not going to get it in time. I'll probably be wearing the Fat Dad hoodie or hat. So, so that's what's coming up. We're still working on the guests for next week. It is still tough. All the pros are still kind of resting and getting ready for the upcoming season, but we're going to come back with something. We already have a couple of things planned if we can't have a guest be able to make it for Monday night. So we will have another show next week. We will return to 8:00. This was changed because it's Valentine's Day. We're all married and we have to respect that, or else we're not allowed to do shows anymore. So thanks everybody again for showing up, and we'll catch you next week. So see you then. Tight lines.